Welcome back to the NASTD 101 series. I'm Brad Steele, Senior Director of Unified Communications for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and an NASTD past president. NASTD is the National Association of State Technology Directors and is made up of technology professionals serving state government. It is a member-driven organization whose purpose is to advance and promote the effective use of information technology and services to improve the operation of state government. Article 1, Section 2, under Purpose and Goals of the NASTD Constitution, has the second goal listed as engage in programs for the training, education, and development of technology professionals from all areas of state government. To accomplish this goal, we decided to put together a set of educational videos that we call IT 101 sessions to help with this education. In these videos, we are asking industry leaders from our corporate affiliate community 10 or so questions about the technology, service, or methodology in question to help gain a basic knowledge of the subject at hand. And as we insinuate by the 101 in the name, these are high-level discussions to provide basic knowledge, which we hope will help you to engage with other industry professionals or other state members of NASTD. If you haven't seen the videos that we put together in the past, I ask that you refer to the NASTD website, nastd.org, for a link to our YouTube channel where you can find all the previous videos. Once on the YouTube channel, we do ask that you subscribe and like the videos so that we can qualify for a custom YouTube link in the future. So our discussion today is mapping your customer journey, or as states would say, mapping your citizen journey. For this discussion, we reached out to Shelley Roslin from our corporate affiliate partner, Genesys, and she provided us with some great contacts, and our subject matter expert for today's session is Steve Babursky. Steve serves as a public sector CTO at Genesys. He brings over 2 decades of experience designing, delivering, and selling large enterprise VoIP, unified communications, and contact center solutions to help government agencies create superior engagement with constituents and employees. Steve has a Bachelor of Arts degree in English writing and political science from the University of Pittsburgh and a master's degree in systems engineering from George Washington University. So if you've seen these videos before, I always like to ask a fun fact from our subject matter experts. And Steve's fun fact is that he learned to fly a plane before he learned to drive a car. So welcome, Steve, and would you like to elaborate on that a little bit?
Yes, when I was growing up, I was in an organization called the Civil Air Patrol, and the Civil Air Patrol is an volunteer auxiliary arm of the Air Force, and they do search and rescue. And I was a cadet in the Civil Air Patrol and did, ground search and rescue on the Ranger side of the house. We had a senior squadron at the airport we were stationed at. We got to do evaluation flights, right? Orientation flights, we would call them. And I was sitting in the front seat, my buddy's in the back, and the gentleman flying the plane, Major R, was like, "Oh, would you like to take the controls?" I was like, he must have seen me drooling, right? So, I grabbed him, next thing you know, I'm hooked, right? So I started doing lessons. Unfortunately, I didn't finish my license when I was in high school, but I started flying, right about the same time I was learning to drive. So, landing a plane, and my dad's like, "Wow, isn't it complicated?" So there's a lot less stuff in the air than there is on the road. So I have to tell you, it's a lot easier to fly. It's just the landing part's a little tricky, So, it was a lot of fun, and I really wish I had got back to it, now, but one day maybe. But I could Cessna 172. I could put it up, take it down, and I learned to drive a car and stick about a year later.
I love it. Now, someday in a separate discussion, we'll have to talk about your membership in the Girl Scouts.
Ah, yes. Well, that's another great story, actually.
All right. So we're talking about citizen journey mapping. So when we talk about mapping a citizen journey, what is the journey and what does that mean to us?
So, there's so many components to this. And the industry has a lot of confusing terms, right? You've heard the word conflate, right? Where they put things in. So there's journey mapping, there's journey orchestration, there's the analytics that go with journey. To me, journey mapping has always been the motion of discovery, right? But creating a journey map is actually a product example. So we say journey management and journey orchestration, right? So what it is honestly being able to track or identify an end-to-end transaction for every user and do some analysis, regardless of what channel or touch point they may be coming into your contact center or your customer experience center. So if they're coming in on a web page, or if they're reaching out through chat, social media, perhaps a traditional telephone call, you want to identify that user and track their journey across the way. And there are many, many, many benefits to this, right? You through the analytics portion of this, which is our product Pointless, you get into a very deep view of where the friction points are, right? Which is, we're seeing that so many people go to this website. Maybe we have a bot or a chat bot for one of the customers, and or there's a transaction they want to execute, and every time they hover over the transaction, for some reason they decide to call us instead. So if you see this influx of call volume, you're not looking at that chat session or that web session in conjunction with the caller. You may think, oh, I've got this influx of volume, I've got to staff up, when really I got to figure out what's going on with my website. Perhaps there's some optimization there. Maybe the knowledge base isn't presenting the right answer. So it's all about gathering as much information as you can to we talk about white space, which is trying to find out where the gaps are. We talk about friction points, which is where the frustration is, right? The analytics portion is the first part of this journey map. And once you create a journey map, we're very big on introducing empathy as a service, right? And the way you do this is to provide as much information to the agent as you can by the time the customer arrives, right? Or situate, whatever we call them, public sector, right? And so, for example, let's say I've tried to renew my driver's license. And I was on the website and I just about to click pay and say, I don't, or maybe you want to have a chatbot. Say, hey, can I help you? I see you're about to pay. Maybe they call in. Maybe they call in a couple of times. They drop. Track that journey. You have the option to say, oh, maybe I want to, the next time he calls in, let's move him up in the queue. Or by the time he arrives, you say, hi, John, I see you try to renew your driver's license. How can I help? As opposed to, what are you calling for today? Have you tried this? You have the entire journey in front of you because it's now data that's available. So I instantly can relate to the customer or the constituent that's calling because I know what they've done. They don't have to spend 20 minutes explaining to me where they've been and what they've tried. I don't have to play inquisitor and ask 20 questions. It's a faster transaction. Everything's there from the start. And we'll talk all about the optimization that comes along with that.
Excellent. And so why would this be important to states in particular?
Well, there's this huge effort, obviously, in the federal and state and local government to regain trust with your constituents, right? It's a federal mandate at the federal level. I don't know anybody that doesn't want to improve customer experience for their citizens, right? I mean, no one said, oh, no, I don't want to do that. But now there's a mandate, right? So you've got a little excuse to move this stuff up in the queue. But why is it important? Is because retention today is challenging. Everybody's got these metrics, these desirable, oh, I'd love to reduce call handling time. I'd like to reduce, or increase the number of calls or improve my drop call ratio, or maybe number of bounces off of a website. I'd like to reduce that. All these laudable goals, right? So if you look at them individually and you're not looking at holistically from a journey perspective and perhaps the empathetic perspective, you may end up making technology decisions that don't yield the results you want because you have no way to measure it, right? So, bots. I want to get bots. Bots will save everything. That's the answer, right? So I'm going to do self-service. Well, how effective are your bots? You might be able to have an analytics tool that comes with the bot that might say how long someone's been on the website or how many clicks they've done. But I mean, to track, well, what if they leave that site? The bot, you're not tracking anymore. Well, you need to track that to find out what they've done next. Did they call in? Did they send an email? Did they come back later? All of things help you to decide where to spend your money next, right? Which is, honestly, you don't know where you need to go until you know where you are, right? And the best thing about the analytics portion of this journey mapping is figuring out what the heck is going on. And the value to the state is budgeting, it's expense saving, it's training and retention, it's across the board. We can talk a little bit about some of the details, but really the value there is data, of course, data is the big word. You got to figure out what to do with your data. Well, how you present that data is just as important as what you have access to. And we have the ability to present data to the agent side so we can see where they've been, what they're doing, the knowledge base that the customer has access to, the agent does as well. They can update that knowledge base, all kinds of great things to improve the experience overall. This improves efficiency, reduces time. All those great metrics follow, right? If I don't have to play 20 questions or I've got answers, I can see what he asked. I can skip that question and go right to, oh, I think you meant this. Toll-free calls are only free for the caller, not for the agency, right? So, and that hasn't changed, right? So anyway, if you can improve the bounce rate on your website instead of 20%, I got 40% of transactions now being done. And that's real money. It goes to fund some other initiative, right? I mean, that's value, right? So it is for certain about trust and experience, but there's absolutely a financial aspect to this, as it always is.
Yeah, and I in listening to what you're saying, I mean, it seems to me also, with the lack of ability that a lot of states are seeing with being able to hire and being able to get people onboarded, that we could do more with the staff that's available if we had a better journey mapped out and we're treating those individual touch points a little bit faster.
Well, CIOs and CROs, anybody with the budget loves when you show your homework, right? If you have true metrics and say, look how many people tried to go to the website and couldn't get there because look how many people called in, we had drop calls, all these, you have real metrics. You need to do those independently. When you look at the whole journey, it's a whole different picture. You can start making real decisions, right? So the value there at the senior leadership level is always a quick hit once they understand what they're getting.
Awesome. All right. Chinese philosopher Lao Tse is credited with having said, "A journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step." So when it comes to this type of journey, what's our first step?
Well, it's discovery, right? So the first step is, what do we know today? And we're happy to help with this. This is something that we do for free. Most of our competitors will also like to do this for free, which is we want to come in and sit down with you and help you evaluate where are the friction points? Where are you doing, what is your mission? How are you trying to do it? And we always talk about identify your business requirements. Out of that will come functional requirements, and you'll get technical requirements. You see a lot of proposals in the street today, a lot of initiatives that say, here's what I'm doing. I want to make it better. I want to move what I have to the cloud, or I want to optimize this by getting new technology. And then, some of the reasons they're doing things the way they're doing it is it was the only way they could do it at the time, right? So the first step is this discovery. Gather what data you have. We'll do some observation for a couple of days. Look at the call flows. We'll look at your website. Take an exam, a really close look at where you're trying to go, what you have in place. Some things might be working just fine, right? You just may not be consuming right, or you just leave it alone. And then the next step is out of that comes the how we're going to move forward, which is let's take maybe three key items, some missions, and say we're going to focus on these three things. Here's the objectives. Here's how we're going to measure the objectives. Let's go. We get true measurable metrics. If you don't have that, you can spin in the window all you want. And, it's better now, obviously. And this again where the true detail comes in. There's a lift from a labor perspective. You can do it as a consulting engagement. A lot of people do, depending on the size of the agency. They may say, "Look, this is so valuable. We're going to put an FTE or two on." Right? It's very important once they get a hold of what the value is. Right? So and it's a great snapshot. So first step, always discovery. Figure out what you know. There's known knowns and unknowns, right? So known unknowns, unknown unknowns. Right? I think it was Cheney. Right? But it's true, right? You don't know what you don't know sometimes, right? So. Yeah. When you do this journey, and do some things, make sure, by the way, you bring all the stakeholders in, all the common sense stuff, and just round table. What's happening? What we'd like it to happen? Where do you think agent, or supervisor, the friction is? What's causing you the most frustration? What do you think we can do to improve? And then let's look at the journey and start looking at opportunities to improve. We identify those friction points, and we look for white space. That is the gap between the user experience. Those are the first two things that's part of the first steps of discovery.
All right. So in preparation for that discovery, what should we be looking at within our organization? What items? You mentioned websites and call flows.
Well, obviously it depends on what's deployed, right? So, but don't forget to talk about the infrastructure that's supporting this stuff, because sometimes the only challenge is you're lacking bandwidth, you're lacking trunks, you're lacking, there's a bad experience. The technology is not working properly, not because it's not deployed properly, the infrastructure supporting it's not, there's a firewall problem. It's living in the cloud. How can you figure that out, right? So don't leave any stone unturned and just start to collate the data that you have, right? So clearly, how to determine you need a contact center has traditionally always been, do I need real-time reporting? That's always been the hand test, right? You can always do a hunt group. A UCD group you can log into, right? But if I need reporting and visibility, you need a contact center. In the old days, it was just a call center, right? But those reports have existed forever, and you have that data. But being able to take that data and analyze it holistically, like, okay, I've got website data, I've got, social media data, and, these users aren't always identified by the same ID, depending on where they're coming in. You might have an email for someone, you might have a customer number here. You've got to sync that up. So gathering as much data as you can, and then bringing that to the table along with the stakeholders that own those things, the first thing you have to do. And it's not automatic. It's just not intuitive sometimes. And then after you do it, you go, well, of course, right? But, it's a learning, it's a journey. And it's sometimes you might want to say, I'm just going to focus on one thing, and that's okay. But you still need to understand how that one thing fits into the picture, right? So bring us drawings, bring us call flows, bring us your reports. Let's talk.
Okay. So you mentioned this a moment ago. You know, we're all used to that old-fashioned call center, especially in state. You call in, you wait in queue for 2 hours, et cetera. But there's a lot of changes that have happened in this space. So what are some of those changes that have taken place?
It's so fun to look at the evolution of technology for me. I'm a geek at heart, right? You know, despite my English degree, I'm a history guy, right? Poli-sci, but I love the technology aspect, right? So if you look at the emergence of the call center and how it became a call center to a contact center to a customer experience center, whatever you want to call it, the journey was, what's the medium of connectivity? It was always a phone to start, hasn't gone away. Next thing you came up was multi-channel, which is, hey, I can maybe take emails and I can respond to an email from an agent with some data. Maybe there's a text channel, a chat, right? But those were all multiple channels and they were all treated independently. So I would have to have someone log into the chat queue, maybe clean out the inbox for the email once a day or twice a day, depending on the part, right? The next phase was omni-channel. Omni-channel was every mode of connection, regardless, every channel was considered equal. So it didn't matter if it was email, a text, a phone call, social media, it would all come in and get placed in queue in order of its arrival because the agent wouldn't have to log in and out. They could deal with all those channels together. So that's the omni-channel side. That's the contact side. At the same time, you've seen workforce optimization and workforce management, grow and develop. It used to be just good old fashioned, what's my call volume? What's my staffing going to be? How many agents do I have available? Look at reports, checks, right? Basic analytics, workforce optimization, which is how many people do I need when? How do I cover vacations, right? Then it gets into, it's emerged all the way to shift swapping. It's emerged to advanced analytics, which is, what were these guys doing exactly when we had this kind of call volume? Were there a number of agents in ready? The analytics portion of all of this has continued to evolve the entire way, right? So, and out of that comes more action. And at the other pillar of change has always been AI, self-service, right? Whether it's being able to put automatic callback. IRS will tell you they save millions and millions of dollars and hundreds of thousands of minutes just by instituting callback, which is if you don't want to sit online, hang up, you'll retain your place in queue. Now, a lot of people are like, sure you will, right? But once that caught on, what's the value? I'm not wasting 800 toll-free minutes sitting there, and then the agent can call back when they're available. If there's a lull for some reason, it's more efficient across the board. It's a better experience because then when I call you, I've called you on the number you've asked me to call you on at the time you may have provided, and I know who you are and what you want, right? So that's just one example of the optimization. But then you get into self-service, right? The whole idea of AI and the emergence of it originally in the contact center space was to reduce the level of effort put forth by the agents and take the mundane away, right? Employees they're the most expensive part of the solution, right? Always agents, right? So how do you optimize that resource? Well, that is, if you're a help desk, you want to reset passwords. I mean, I think one of the first things that was self-service was password reset, right? What's your user ID? One to reset your password, and it'll unlock it. That was, really revolutionary at the time, right? Because now you started interactive voice response. Now you're starting, instead of just a call attendant where you're saying, if you'd like to reach here, press 1, press 2, press 3. It's please enter your customer number. I'll give you a report. Then you can pull data back and maybe you intercept the mother on hold. Oh, I can get my balance. Great. And I hang up. So all of these things have emerged over time to become the customer experience center we have today. And we have so much data at our disposal, so much technology. I mean, at the outside, you've got mobility coming in. So now you've got mobile clients, right? The best way to route a call back in the day was area code exchange-based routing. I knew where someone was calling from because I knew what area code they were in. Yep. Well, that's out the door, right? I mean, my cell phone, I had a Pittsburgh cell phone in Northern Virginia for 15 years. I mean, mobility has changed the game entirely. The other thing is they want to get to you now. So how you design an application, how you design your customer on your web face, it's got to be mobile friendly. That's a change. I mean, smartphones are only since 2007. What you can do with them now, as bandwidth advances, right? And gets cheaper, processing power enhances. All these things are happening simultaneously. But the biggest thing that happened in contact center space to me was that, the revolution in how the channels were aggregated and then what you could see when they came in. And I think that, all the supporting technology around it obviously boosted that. But, you have to get to a certain point before you can start, without the advent of SIP, which is a call signaling protocol that is media independent, which shoots an email like a voicemail, like a chat. You're not doing this, right? So been a long journey, and it's really fun to imagine what's going to come next, right? So that's the fun part of the industry.
Yeah, and with the pandemic and all of the other events over the last 3 years, how has that affected this space?
I'm sorry.
Especially
Oh, the pandemic? Yeah, well,
yeah, and
you know,
especially in state government, right?
I
Yeah.
mean, there was just on the infrastructure side alone. So let's take the contact center out of the mix, right? Just, a lot of people had disaster recovery and business continuity plans. Some people don't know the difference. There is a difference, but the government lumps it together, calls it COOP, continuity of operations planning. Well, there's a difference, but it doesn't matter, right? Which is, what do you do if you can't get to here? Disaster recovery used to mean loss of access to a facility. Business continuity used to mean a temporary interruption in service, maybe a fiber finder, aka a backhoe, cut your circuits, right? But with the cloud, first of all, the advent of the cloud came along, and what COVID did was drive people to the cloud faster than ever. Because, and there were some who say that it accelerated the adoption of certain cloud technologies such as teleconferencing and remote agents 7x, like 7 years earlier. Like it just accelerated the curve. So you see hockey stick growth. You see no one can get to the office. Once you get through the, oh my gosh, I have to make everybody VPN, and my VPN infrastructure is not designed to do that. What do I do? You've got the agent experience. Working from home used to be a privilege, right? And it was limited by, you have to test your internet connection, make sure it's a minimum speed, make sure you have the right hardware at home, swear you're going to do this and not that. There's some kind of monitoring tool. How can I tell you're really working? That all went out the window with COVID. So please log on. We don't care where you sit or what you're wearing. Log in. If it's over the internet, good, right? And then let's deal with it as it comes, right? So a lot of things fell down. Security kind of there were a lot of exceptions made to security policies just based on the fact that there was no choice. I'm using home internet connections, maybe DSL, maybe Fios, fiber, maybe, hopefully, obviously not dial-up somewhere, maybe, right? It brought out the digital divide, right? Which is, the states more than ever are starting to realize that this lack of access that still exists in regions in every state where you can't get an internet circuit, you can't get a connection, absolutely changed the game. And it was like, this is now number one priority, which we've got to fix this, because the future of our workforce and our economy may depend on it now. It was not just a convenience to work from home, it was a requirement. And you can't do that without internet access, right? So now there's this huge initiative across the states to fund this, the divide shrinking, right? So all kinds of changes. Then, of course, with remote workers, you've got, how am I managing these people really, right? How can I tell what they're doing? Yes, I can log in, I can see they're taking a call, I can see what their ready status is, but I don't really know. And over time, it turned into a selling benefit, right? So the benefits started showing, which is, hey, these people aren't burned out because they're wasting an hour each way in the commute. I can hire people I could never hire before. I can reach a demographic that I couldn't before, maybe get better representation of my constituency, because people that had to drive to an office to get a contact center do it for where they live. They represent a different group of people, right? Caregiving, huge thing. And then you introduce shift swapping, which is, hey, I've got a doctor appointment, or I've got someone sick with COVID, I can't take it. You've got all this dynamic on the fly adjustments made because of the pandemic. And by and large, we dealt with it, right? And technology you couldn't imagine you do this for a living, but you can imagine how quickly it was adopted. And you're just throwing standards out the window. Who can give me dial tone? Who can give me bandwidth right now? I'll take an internet connection anywhere you can get it. You're not touching your servers. Your IT staff's not going to, you might have had a lights out data center, but now it's even worse, right? So you're not patching things. And the cloud has always been, everybody knows why cloud, right? Which is, CapEx, OpEx versus CapEx, disaster recovery, I can automatic route, all that good stuff. But now it's, wow, I can literally get to that from anywhere. And I don't care where you are. And it's now with state ramp and fed ramp and a lot of things, it's really secure, perhaps maybe even more secure than my own enterprise. Maybe I'm going to leave it up there, right? Maybe I'm going to move now. And there was, of course, requirement. Microsoft Teams, it became the UC standard. It was on everyone's desktop. You IP trunk enable that. You got a phone system. You don't worry about a phone on the desk. You have to worry about forwarding calls to their house. I mean, all those old things you do all went by the wayside. So COVID, literally, it was a paradigm shift. So, and we're still seeing, there's going to be studies for the next 50 years just on the technology implications of what happened from this, right? Hockey stick, straight up, curves. So, and the innovation that came out of that, I think, is still being discovered. So,
yeah, I know that within Massachusetts, it accelerated a lot of things, mostly for the good, but it definitely accelerated a lot of things that we've been working on for quite some time. But just having that mandate of people having to be able to work remotely allowed us to get there much faster. So, all right, so I've decided to make the journey. I've done all my preparation and everything. How do I go about procuring this? What are the cost models and And
Well, there's so many different, everything's moving to an as a service or a subscription-based model, right? No one's buying licenses anymore. You're not paying monthly recurring. You're not paying maintenance anymore. You're paying usage charges based on what you use. Now, there's still multiple usage models in the contact center space alone. There is concurrent agent, which is we're going to bill you in arrears for the maximum number of agents that have been logged on concurrently in a month. Or it's named users, which is however many agents you configure, that's where you have to buy a license for every one of them. And then there's just plain old flat usage, which is the Amazon method, which is based on pure minutes. We're going to bill you for the minutes you're online. The total number of people online will bill you per minute per second to pay the bill monthly, which is kind of a more random bill, but that's one of the models out there. We actually support all three. The usage model is not particularly popular. It's very expensive. It's hard to predict, right? But concurrent users are probably the most popular right now. And what we're finding really is, as people move to the cloud, this concurrent model, in the old days, you would buy, whether it's UC or CX. I have 500 agents. I have 500 licenses. I think I might need 750 agents the next year. I'm getting a good price. I'll buy all 750 agents. Maybe I'll deploy 750 agents. But every year, the bill for maintenance comes, you're paying on 750 agents, right?
Yep.
So one of the fun things in the industry when you move, especially for UC as well as CX, we start doing how many out there? Avaya, Cisco, all the premises guys are like, I've got 5,000 seats there. I've got 20,000 seats. Well, you've sold 20,000 licenses, but it turns out they only need 13,000 of them, right? And there's that reconciliation going on. So that value of going to the cloud is there. And that's just one of the fun parts of the journey, right? So, but the procurement method is generally month to month. Obviously in the public sector space, it's got to be on some kind of contract. There are a number of contract vehicles out there, whether it's NASPO rather, or you guys can all buy off Schedule 70, whatever it is. But we understand, and all of our business is done through partner. We don't do direct. Right? We understand the value of the partner for implementation. So in our instance, you would go through a distributor. The partner would go through a distributor and sell to you guys on whatever contract you choose. So there's pre-bid ones, right? So it's usually month to month. Some people will look for prepayment. Some people will try to, it's not, it doesn't happen, right? In our space, but the commercial guys are like, I'll pay you for 3 years up front. No, we're not. Budget's 1 year, right? So, you get through those hurdles, right? But it's by and large a consumption model, and we bill in arrears based on whatever metric you chose. Usage, most likely concurrent agents or usage. And then when it comes to database access, it's how many people access that product from an analytics perspective. Not, if I'm going to do workforce optimization management for 9,000 users, I need a license for every one. That's not how it works, right? So that's kind of gone away. That's still there, but it's like, it's going away, right? It's all about consumption and reconciling what your usage is, so you pay for only what you need. That's really not changing when it comes to analytics, when it comes to contact center technology, or any of the journey. Not even good old fashioned mapping. So when I talk about mapping, really a journey map is actually an output, right? Which is, all right, here's an experience. Here's the way the agents have come in now. Here's what we're going to change. Here's what's going to look like. We're going to have a bot intercept here based on this action. Maybe they will route them automatically to wherever, and that's a map. You can't do that until you gather the data, and that's where the analytics comes in. So all of this stuff is procured really in our space, in public sector, on a month-to-month basis in arrears, monthly recurring charges.
And is there any hardware or software that we need to take into consideration?
Not in our space. I mean, there's still people out there that are going to sell you licenses and a dongle somewhere. But I mean, the whole advantage of it, we're mostly cloud, right? So if it's a cloud service, and I'm sure you've seen this, right? There's always been a discrepancy. What is cloud? If it's someone else's data center, it must be, no. And for me, the delineation has always been who owns the hardware, who owns the platform, right? So if the state owns the platform, and if it breaks, they got to fix it. And I'm managing it, that's a hosted or managed service. It's not cloud. Cloud is you pay me a monthly fee, and I own everything. You don't own licenses anymore. You have a right to access, RTU, right to use. The hardware is my responsibility. Keeping it patched, my responsibility. If it breaks, my responsibility. You pay me a flat fee monthly, and I own the rest of that stuff. And that's all on me. And that's the benefit of the cloud in general, right? That's where we're going, which is evergreen technology. It's always current because it has to be in our space. It's got to be patched. It's got to be compliant, right? And then you just take away that pain of the big monthly maintenance bill at the end of the year. The surprise, the server went down. I got to replace a server that's not in the budget. None of that's your responsibility anymore. It's right. It's what's the monthly cost, and the entire infrastructure is on us. And that's really the benefit of the cloud overall, right? So I always take this for granted. Like everybody knows why cloud, but perhaps they haven't gotten that far. So that's really the number one advantage, right? You own none of this stuff.
Awesome. So I have to ask, in this day and age, but are there any security concerns?
I mean, all day long, right? So, I mean, that's where all these standards come in, right? So, if you look at even our commercial platform, if you look at the list of, SOC 2, PCI, HIPAA, high tech, ISO, any ISO standard, there's that NIST baseline, right? The National Institute of Standards and Technology baseline of controls that everybody adheres to, right? And for the public sector cloud, that's the table stakes, right? So, I saw a really good comic today, and I was going to send it to you. I didn't have a chance, which is in this corner we have antivirus, firewalls, intrusion detection, intrusion protection, cameras, and this side we have Dave, who is human error, right? Human error is undefeated, right? Never lost a bout, right? Doesn't matter what tools you have, you still got to have the training there. Right? You can't. They've never lost a bout, right? When you press the wrong button, you miss to configure something. Doesn't matter what tools you have, right? So that's still a problem. I mean, that's not going to go away. But I will tell you this, from a security perspective, what we always say is, and what I've been saying in the FedRAMP space, particularly because we're FedRAMP authorized, we're about to get our authorization for our second platform. We have one for one now. And that is, our business is compliance and security for that entire platform. So if, as a state, you have a limited number of resources, whether and security professionals are not inexpensive resources, they're highly trained, they're highly sought after, and there's a lot of stuff they have to look at. You move to a secure cloud like FedRAMP, StateRAMP, or another compliance standard you adhere to, you can take your eyes off that platform. That's our job, right? Which is I'm on that 24/7, 365. You don't have to do that anymore. So I'm going to report to you. You're going to check. You're going to review my scans and monitoring, make sure, but other people are looking over my shoulder as well, right? That's my only mission in life, is to keep that platform up, running, compliant, and secure. Let those people focus on something else. Take it off your list, right? And if it's collaboration, now the internet might be a link away. Now it's coming through me first before it gets to you. I don't have that boundary where they're all kinds of advantages from a security perspective, right? You still have and we're throwing two-factor authentication. That's a requirement for FedRAMP and StateRAMP and the NIST control, right? All these kind of things, but you still have the implementation side of that. So the security part of it is a little cost associated with it. There's generally an uplift for this compliance standards out there because there is continuous monitoring, right? Constant patching and upgrades. It's becoming more and more a commodity, right? But there's still a delta between what's out there. But really what's happening is the commercial space is catching up, right? AES 256 encryption is there in our commercial platform. It might not be a FIPS module, FIPS 140-2 certified module, because it's commercial. I can't even export that, but it's still AES 256 encryption, right? So it's solid, rock solid encrypted at rest, encrypted in motion. I mean, that's our business, right? But I can only go so far as my boundary. And you sign a little letter that says, agency says, I'm walking my boundary. That's on me, right? You sign ISA. So, we help. We help you make sure that your security is set up. You're going to have your work available over the internet. You have to poke a hole in your firewall. Well, let's do that properly, right? Let's not just open and wide up. Let's make sure you can see me and I can see you and only each other, right? So all of these things are still constraints, but by and large, the benefit from a security perspective is far outweighed the detrimental side of it, because it's just the business of everybody today, right? So, we believe that because we're purpose built for this environment, we bring that to the table up front.
Okay. When we first reached out to you, I told you this was going to be relatively painless. And believe it or not, we're down to the last question. And I always ask the same question last, which is, what did I forget to ask you? What else do we need to know?
Well, I think one of the things I'd like to talk about when it comes to journey orchestration and journey mapping is that it is a technology that is vendor agnostic, right? So if I am in the middle of a migration to the cloud or trying to evaluate how to get there, regardless of whose technology it is, it doesn't matter if it's a Genesis platform, Cisco, Avaya, RingCentral, it doesn't matter. This technology plugs in and sits in front of all of it, right? I can reach into databases, I can reach into PBXs, I can reach into contact center services, and you don't have to wait, right? It's like, oh my gosh, I don't want to do it. I don't want to swap out my contact center just for analytics. I have to do that, right? This stuff is bolt on, and it is absolutely vendor agnostic. So I think don't wait, act now. You hear this, but it's true, right? So the benefit is immediate, right? You're going to see real time value in doing these analytics, and you don't have to swap out your entire platform to do it. Like, oh God, I got to swap out all my agents. I got to retrain them. That's not required, and I think that's probably a misperception based on how hard it is to install the rest of this technology, right? Which is some kind of new call recorder, right? That's not what this is, right? So this is a bolt-on front end, vendor agnostic. Whatever databases you want to get to, we've got hooks to it, or we'll write them, right? And then, If you want to move to some more of our stuff, we're happy to do that. If not, we're happy to help you figure out what you're doing with the platform you have today, right? And that's what I want to leave everybody with is don't wait. It's not a major shift in your entire platform. This is just something you can bring up in front and start taking a look at what you got.
Excellent. Well, that ends another IT 101 session for NASTD. So thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
So I'd like to again thank Shelley Roslin from CAC Partner Genesis for helping us put together this session. Thank you again to our subject matter expert, Steve Baversky, Public Sector CTO at Genesis. And if you're watching this and you found it as beneficial as I always do when I'm asking the questions and hearing the answers live, please ask that you would hit the like button on the video and subscribe so we can continue to bring you this content. So thank you again. For me, it's for us right now, it's the beginning of the holiday season. So depending on when this gets published, I hope you either have or had a very nice holiday season. And that you enjoy the time with your family and friends. So, and hopefully 2023 is an improvement over 2022.
Amen.
And thank you all. And